Hello students, Mr. John here, and today we're going to take a look at our C-step block pivot and punch combination. Now juniors, you need to be able to do this as for an orange belt, okay? So for white belt, we did our blocks in place. For yellow belt, we did C-step and block. And now as an orange belt, you're going to do a C-step and block pivot and punch combination for your purple belt test. So ready? Right side first. So C-step and inward block. So you're in a neutral bow. Everything's pointed to the corners. Pivot and punch, and now you're in a forward bow. C-step, inward block, pivot and punch. C-step, inward block, pivot and punch. Going back. C-step back, inward block, pivot and punch. C-step back, inward block, pivot and punch. C-step back, inward block, pivot and punch. Coming forward, C-step and inward, pivot and punch. Now you can chamber all the way if you like, pivot and punch. Chamber, block, punch, or you can practice bringing it halfway back so that your elbow is on your side instead of your fist. Pivot and punch. Come halfway back, block, pivot and punch. Come halfway back as you cat. Step back, pivot and punch. All right, let's do that with an outward block. Outward block, pivot and punch. Outward block, pivot and punch. Outward block, pivot and punch. Let's go back. Outward block, pivot and punch. Outward block, pivot and punch. Outward block, pivot and punch. All right, so we did that with a double factor, which means we go inward, outward, pivot and punch. Inward, outward, pivot and punch. Inward, outward, pivot and punch. So as you cat, you do your minor move, inward block. As you finish your step, you do your major move, outward block, and then you pivot and punch. So cat and inward, neutral bow and outward, forward bow and punch. Cat and inward, neutral bow and outward, forward bow and punch. Cat and inward, neutral bow and outward, pivot and punch. Cat and inward, neutral bow and outward, pivot and punch. Cat and inward, neutral bow and outward, pivot and punch. Cat back and inward block, neutral bow and outward block, pivot and punch. Inward, outward, pivot and punch. Inward, outward, pivot and punch. Now we're going to double factor on our upward block too. So inward block is your cat. Now this time, instead of coming all the way across, you can just stop right on your center line. So right in front of your nose. Then upward and punch. Inward, upward, pivot and punch. Inward, oops, my fault, upward, pivot and punch. I was going into an outward block there. In, up, pivot and punch. In, up, pivot and punch. In, up, pivot and punch. Okay, so we're going to do our downward block single factor for now, and later we're going to add the double factor in because it's a little bit trickier than the other ones. So touch your shoulder as you cat, downward block as you neutral, pivot to a forward when you punch. Cat, downward, punch. Cat, neutral, forward. Okay? Now going back. Cat, neutral, forward. Touch your shoulder, downward block, pivot and punch. Touch your shoulder, downward block, pivot and punch. Going forward. Touch your shoulder, downward block, pivot and punch. 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 All right, orange belts, practice that for your purple belt test. Get really good at it and have fun.